Thank you very much, Dr. Asong. Thank you for, holding the ropes of the conference so well up to this extent. And yes, we have really come to the crux of the matter, the focus of the day today. As I said, reminding to all the pressmen whom we heartily welcome here that the leaders have already spoken. They spoke, first of all, in the MOU, and they have spoken again here. And now we want to listen to you. Please feel free to ask any type of question, probing questions. And we also thank you for your contributions that enabled us, because if we have been successful so far towards the organization, because of the contributions you made when registering, you gave us some tips how to better proceed with it. And we appreciate those who are struggling with network on the ground. There are several people who have just sent a message to me. Amos Mwangsa of Youth Radio, Magic FM, and I forgot his newspaper. And then just also to reiterate that the timekeeper is a third party that is almost functioning like AI. So allow you to ask your questions. We have 2 minutes. So it's better we ask very clear-cut questions that are precise and concise. And very importantly, when you take the floor, please introduce yourself again, your media house, and then ask your question. And please also do not forget to name to a particular leader. Please say my question is to this leader or that other leader or their representative. And if you are not asking to any specific person, also be clear and say, okay, my question, let anybody answer. Thank you. Over.
I think the iPhone with the red tracksuit is the one we are referring to now.
Okay. Good evening, wherever you are watching. I'm sorry I came in late. I was driving like mad to attend this meeting. The international community already identified this problem since 1st of August, since 1961 in the House of Commons. And I will state and quote exactly what the MP for Dundee, MP Thompson, said. He said, the problem of uniting these two territories would in any event be difficult. They are two territories of completely different culture with different political systems, one English administration and the other French administration. Now, let me pose this question to the federalists. We want to be in union or we want to be a federated state with French Cameroon. How does this work? How does this work? These are people, two different people with two different cultures, two political systems, completely, they are a type mismatch in everything.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt you. You have already asked the question. You are repeating it again. But before we'll give them the floor to answer, can you please introduce yourself again?
Sorry, my name is Godwin Su.
Thank you very much, Mr. Godwin Su. The question is very clear to federalists, unless you are adding another question. But
okay, the second thing is that I wanted to say is that as an independent state, we can now decide the type of government that we want to run, whether it be federal or any type. So why can't we just come together as one, agree on one principle that we're going to adopt, and then when we become a government, we now decide to say, okay, the federal system of government is good for the Anglophones.
Mr. Michael, can you hold on? Let Mr. Alem make a point of order. Yes, sir.
Point of order, yes. We're discussing, or I believe we're discussing, as sensitive issues which are resulting to us having this meeting. I want to propose and request that if people join the meeting late, like I did, at some point, moderator, you should stop whoever is speaking, let the person introduce themselves first, because number one, not everyone's on video. And number two, we're discussing things that by the time you get to somebody, we may not know who we're talking to. So it'll be a good idea as people join the meeting later on. If you see someone joining in, it's just let the person stop speaking, or at least get them to a stopping point. Let the people that are coming in introduce themselves, so we know and we feel comfortable discussing these sensitive issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Mr. Michael, can you proceed with your answer?
What's the name of that question again?
Godwin Su.
Godwin, you have two parts. What was the first part again? I had like a break with the line.
Yeah, the first part of my question was, these are two people with two different cultures, two political systems, one English and one French, which is completely a type mismatch. They cannot be together. How do we be federated with them.
Okay. Yes. Well, how come federate? Yeah. And then the second part.
The second part of the question is, why can't the federalists and
okay. Yes.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Godwin. I think the first thing that I want to say is that our conversations here today will be based on the memorandum of understanding. I think that's what that's what brought us here today. We want the media to explain or to take special note of the fact that the Federalists, the civil society, and the independentists have agreed to work together. Now, for me to touch your question, I just want to say Federalists base their position on the fact that these very parliamentarians or politicians or the various these very various colonial masters, as I would say, in 1961 did the same politics. It may have been faulty, it may have had a lot of faults in the way they organized. I would say the arrangement between the English-speaking Cameroon and the French-speaking Cameroon in those days. There may have been significant errors, but they did it anyway. So we are basing our debate or our arguments on what happened between 1961 and 1972. This is when we came together as a federated or two separate countries that agreed on some principles of working together. They may not have been achieved, but the Federalists that I represent, this is what we agree on. This is what we know we're working for. We're working for federation within that same system that the people you just mentioned, who said we can never work together, that is their problem that they were supposed to have resolved long time ago by saying these two people cannot work together, let's separate them. But they managed to bring us together at that moment. So I do believe that if they did, there is something that we can do together to live. Your second question is pretty much like saying we have had or we have our country already, but it is, you would say there was a separate Southern Cameroons, but we don't have. So I wouldn't be able to kind of forecast what would have happened or whether I would not separate and then decide on what kind of government. So the first thing I would say is what I've just told you. These people that make these quotes, it was their responsibility at the time. So now we are dealing with a contemporary nature of a country. And the contemporary nature has evolved from the history to where we are today, from 1961 to where we are today. A lot of changes. And the Federalists believe that if we were to fix the situation that we have today in Cameroon, especially the conflict, a federalist solution would have resolved the problem we have. And if we had...
Yes, I just want to remind the panelists here present that there is the purpose of this meeting, this press conference, is to explain the MOU to the media. So I'm pleading on individuals when asking their questions should not divert from the purpose of this MOU or question the future of others people's ideologies. Let's leave the future of the federalists, the independentists, the ideologies, but let's seek to attain the purpose for which we are here today. I've also seen Comrade Fido getting in, I think, as the housekeeping rule. We need to know who exactly is that for others and SK and the rest. So at one time we will call them to explain, to reintroduce themselves, or failure to do so. If you are kicked out, don't say they were harsh, the moderators were harsh. Please, I just want to make that clear. And so we'll see that we move with the media houses. Let's give the media houses the opportunity to ask their questions, get clarity, and then we come to those who are individualists or who are not representing any media house. My co-moderator.
Thank you, moderator. Collins Chair. I'm not asking a question. I'm just saying in the chat room, there's Professor Nubong who has asked a question, two questions actually. They are well in line with the framework of the Memorandum of Understanding. So please, let's not forget to check the chat room from time to time.
Yes, we are checking the chat room, and there's going to be a slot where we respond to the comments from the chat room.
Yeah, and he's only specifically questions.
Yes.
Yes.
That will be responded to.
We did promise to give the floor to Mr. Comfort Ngebe. Please, are you from the press? Make sure you confirm that. If you are not from the press, we will still let you speak because we promised to give you the floor. But make sure you respect 2 minutes so that we can go faster. Thank you. Over to you, sir. Introduce yourself again. You are Media House. If you are from the media, you are not from the media, feel free to speak, but use 2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Comfort.
Thank you very much, my fellow comrades. I am Confong Gabriel, popularly known as Metrenicon, contributing from the Netherlands. So I want to apologize for joining late. I just saw the link right now. I wasn't prepared. So I don't know how far the conversation must have gone. Quite right, but I understand the topics about federalists, independentists, and all sort of, yeah. So right now, I think I will stay back a bit and then listen which direction the conversation is heading. Then I have an answer, because when it comes to the matter of federation in regard to our homeland, so I have only one point. Are we talking federation as a country within the southern Cameroon, or we are talking federation with the Republic of Cameroon? So this is one thing I need the clarity here, because as if we want to talk about the Federation of 1961, I think that is long failed. It's not something we should be dwelling upon again, because surveys upon surveys have indicated that a very, very vast majority of our people are for absolute independence. And if we were in the first place, when this liberation war now broke out, before it could break out, the intention of we are demanding for going back to the former two-state federation with the Republic of Cameroon. They refused completely. Just uttering the word federation, you were in prison. Agbobala and Fontem, they went to prison because of the word federation. So coming back to it, it's like we want to take our vomit again. So please, I think we've moved past that idea of federation, but people still have the right to their opinion, and we respect them. But at least let's follow the voice of the majority of the people. We have allowed so many people, mislead our cause for so long, describing us in so many forms: secessionists, terrorists, separatists, and all that. We are an independent state. Let's remember that the Southern Cameroon was voted for its independence, and a certificate of sovereignty issued with internationally demarcated borders. Pillars are there to identify. United Nations is our witness. So we should not go very far into dealing who is what. Thank you very much for now.
Can we please move to the next Media House representative who is here, Mr. Fru Nkimbeng? You can ask your question. After that, we'll take the questions from Prof. Gabila before we continue to give the floor to any other person who desires to take the floor. Thank you. Over.
We still have a couple of media houses.
Yes, my name is Fru Nkimbeng. I am the coordinator and director of African Hour. It's been existing since 2000, and I have covered our struggle extensively. Most of you will remember the early days about Lowell. We did quite a footwork, and some of us, particularly the speaker, is equally paying a big price. But I am Southern Cameroonian. I would not say I am independent or federalist or whatever. I am a Southern Cameroonian. But the issue, and I've spoken to people on both sides of the aisle, is that some people who, correct me I'm wrong, and most federalists, they have worked with the French Cameroon. They have their time with them. And this is probably the elephant in the room. And they are rightly correct to be scared. If it becomes a point where it is just there is no federation, they are going to lose anything. And no one has ever brought this up. And many of the Southern Cameroonians and my relatives included, that is the elephant in the room, and that people don't talk about it. But the question I want to ask is, within a family, there are disputes, there are arguments. How long and when will it take us to unite? We are just We are just the eyes of the international communities, and those who want to help us, we are just people who do not know their direction. And we know ourselves very well when it comes with our brothers, the Francophones. They admire us that we can determine and make decisions and move on it. But when it comes to our own house, what will it take us, Southern Cameroonians, to feel the pains and those who have debt, or the federalists or the unionists or whatever, to unite? We have to unite before we face the choir out there.
Yes.
So that is my call, because you see any person from anywhere trying to help us, he said, no one can help you until you start helping yourself. We talk so much about federal. All these labels are European labels. It is exactly what in America they will say you are a conservative, you are a this and that, so that they continue doing what they are doing. But I do feel like all of us that this is a problem between two nations, two languages, two people, two culture. If we do it that way, La République is playing and saying that this is an internal issue. And we, some of those people who are federalists, let us not fall into that trap and play for La République. So my question is, brothers and sisters, what will it take us to unite? We can collaborate and face a unitary front out there as Southern Cameroonians. All the others, when we come into our own house, we will decide. Thank you very much.
As simple as that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Frun Kimben. Yes, any other media house? Hands raised? Not yet. Okay, I acknowledge your hand, Pamba, but please, before you come, we'll take two questions from Prof. Gabila, because we have been postponing that for long enough. So, Prof, can you ask your questions yourself?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, and good evening to you and to everybody. My question was just a follow-up on, I think, Babila's question about the elephant in the room with respect to the current conflict 9 years down the line and the consequences on the people. So I would imagine that for any innovative or any new initiative that is coming to the scene, the people would be keen to try to understand what is the plan of this alliance to end the conflict in terms of, so I'm thinking conflict resolution, how do we bring this current degradation to an end, like a plan of action? What does the team plan to do? That was my first question. And then my second question, which may be covered in the MOU, it's just, shouldn't we, let me ask the second question in a different way, shouldn't we be thinking about finding or identifying or focusing the conversation on picking out what do the three caucuses have in common? What do they find as the common good? What is the Southern Cameroonian public good, the entity of general interest that could stoke our individual attentions to help us to work together? Because I don't know how effective, and you have been thinking about this for a long time. I don't know whether if three hardline positions surface in the public domain, the differences would not crowd and overshadow the commonality. So I'm just thinking in terms of what is the one common good, the one big thing that assembles us together, that can be the hallmark of this alliance that would be in the forefront. So just a question. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, indeed, Prof. If we had left here without addressing that issue, then we wouldn't have achieved our aim of this press conference. And I presume you want any of the leaders to answer. So I can see Mr. Milan, your hand. Yes, your hand is already up. Maybe you will start, followed by Michael, and then...
Thank you very much, moderators. Thank you also, Professor Gabila, for those questions. I have been sitting quietly listening to everyone, and to be honest, it's just beautiful listening to the different interactions, the different interventions, and the different contributions, to the point that I didn't really feel like I need to say much. But with regards to these two questions, and perhaps one or two issues that I would like to raise, what we have been hearing a lot over the course of this conversation. And I think our brother Babila also asked that question, or he kind of insinuated that there seems to be this this belief and this argument, a point of view that says that we are opposed to each other and that we are enemies to each other, be it independentists, federalists, and so on. And of course, the civil society caucus. And that is what we are trying to dispel by this effort. So let me just take everybody back to the very beginning of this phase of the struggle. That is some 7, 8, 9 years ago. Because I think a lot of people do not understand how we found ourselves in this position. A few people have said it at the very beginning. The clamor was for the return to the 1961 arrangement with La République du Cameroun, which was to go back to the federalist system that was in place. That is what got people like Agbobala, Fontaine-Neba, and so on, Penn Terence and them in jail. Now, that then pushed our people to go radical. But it's important also to make this very clear that, and moderators, I haven't spoken for a while, so I hope you will forgive me for taking a bit of time, but I hope that this is going to give a bit of clarity. One of the reasons why our people have taken a radical stance is the fact that the government of La République du Cameroun has also taken a radical stance. This regime is playing a zero-sum game that says we do not even recognize that there is a problem. And you're nothing but a bunch of noisemakers. In fact, they use the word un groupuscule, a very small group of people, who are a very insignificant number of people making a lot of noise. That's basically it. And when you're dealing with an actor that is so dishonest and so violently extremist in its position, it becomes important also that you put in place a force that is commensurate to that entity, because it is only by doing that that you get to meet each other on an equal basis. That is the first thing. Now, back to the issue of federalists. Federalists are not the enemies of the independentists. To give a bit of background, I still remember in the late 2016, early 2017, and especially when we went to the first conclave and then into the second conclave, these were discussion points that came up. We need to be careful with the people who remember that there was a group that had already moved extremists and say, because La République has refused to listen to us, this is the route we are going to take. But there was still a significant segment of our population that said, no, we asked for federation, we remain in that position. You have people like Munzo, like Agbobala, and so on. But we took an informed decision to dissociate what we stood for from the federalist position, not because they were enemies, but because of the fear of diluting our struggle by Francophone adherents of federalism at the time. And let me explain, give an example. Those who know the story, the history of the SDF would know that in the days of Mokong and so on, when they crafted the idea of the SDF, was to say Southern Cameroonians in Cameroon, or West Cameroonians, if you like, had been so badly marginalized and maltreated to the point where we want to form a political party that stands for the interests of our people within that Cameroonian dispensation. What happened over time was that the SDF got quickly flooded, including Francophones who stood for what the SDF stood for. And then that completely diluted the initial goal of the SDF. And this was discussed to say we need to be careful. Let's not make the same mistake of the SDF by letting the fact that federalism could potentially be an option, by letting the Francophones flood it and then take it over like what happened with the SDF. It was never a decision to say the federalist is an enemy of what we stood for. Now, how we got to this point where by standing for federalism, you become an enemy of the struggle is beyond understanding. And that's what we are trying to rectify. And I think time, after 8 years, we can now successfully say Our brothers who say they are federalists are not necessarily our enemies, and there is no fear that our position can be diluted, because our resistance over the past 8 years has made sure that we delineate what entails Southern Cameroon without the dilution of Francophone politicking. Back to the question of Professor Gabila Nubong. What does the alliance plan to do to end the conflict and bring peace? The first thing is doing exactly what we are doing here, to say, after 9 years, that's 2016 to 2025, 9 years almost of fighting against each other and dismissing each other and declaring each other enemies. The first, and I think somebody said it, Ban Ki-moon said it, a couple of people have said it, we need to first of all clean our house, put our house in order. And that's what we are doing. Our brothers are not our enemies. They are just taking on a political philosophy that might not necessarily be exactly the one we are taking, but that does not make them our enemies. That is the reason why I have been making, allusion to this analogy over the past months to say, when we talk about our quest to go to Buea, there are different understandings of going to Buea. If you ask 8 million Southern Cameroonians, what does it mean that we are going to Buea? There are those who see Buea as it is an opportunity for me to go back and thrive and be free in my country. Others see it as a way for me to build my political career. Others see it as a way of enriching themselves. There are lots of different interpretations and ambitions and agendas. But one thing is clear. Independentists are strongly of the opinion that for us, when we say Buea, we mean we are going across the bridge, the Mongo Bridge, we burn it down, and we go all the way to Buea and cut all links with East Cameroon. That's the independentists. The federalist says we are not happy by the fact that we have been absorbed and annexed and taken into Yaoundé to the point where our voices are not being heard. We want to leave Yaoundé and go back. But unlike those who want to burn the bridge and go back to Buea, we want to cross the bridge and settle around the Mongo Bridge. Once we cross it, we settle there, keep the bridge open, but we continue to operate as Southern Cameroonians on our side and trade with them and deal with them as our brothers on the other side. You have others who are now arguing for something like limited autonomy and so on, which says we want to leave Yaoundé. We are not happy being in Yaoundé, but we are not going to cross the Mongo. We want to settle somewhere just before, what do you call it, Bikoko or something. We will be there. We are close to our people, but not completely over. We still stay here. What I see these three key groups is that all of them want to leave the Yaoundé contraption that takes us into this kind of annexation and slavery and go back to something. The difference is that one group is extremist to the point where it wants to go all the way to the mountain. One wants to settle just across the bridge. The other wants to settle just before the bridge. But there is a fourth group that we have not included in this alliance, in the caucuses. These are the unionists. The people like Atang and who say, there is no Anglophone problem, there is no problem at all. We are happy staying in Yaoundé. So when you talk about the encounter of forces, there is two things. There is a force that is pushing away from Yaoundé towards Buea. And there is a force that is pushing against going to Buea and rather going towards Yaoundé. You cannot build an alliance with somebody who's coming with a counter force. That is the unionists going back towards Yaoundé. But you can build an alliance with somebody who is pushing away from Yaoundé towards Buea, even if their force does not want to take them right to the foot of the mountain. It just wants to take them across the bridge. That is an ally, and you can work with them. So I want to dispel the idea that because somebody is federalist and we are independentists, they are our enemies. We just happen to have different ideas, distances of what we want to cover. So Gabila, first point of resolving the conflict, we need to consolidate our unity as a people. Collaboration, if you like, if you prefer the word collaboration, that's the first. That gives us better leverage and better strength to be able to confront La République in its agenda to annex. And this is not what I am saying. Some of our federalist comrades here may not agree with me, but Mr. Biya himself said it when he said, when we brought them in, we wanted to assimilate them. You cannot be the president of a people and you're talking about us and them. It is very clear that we are two separate peoples. So one thing that is clear is that our brothers, we cannot leave them or we cannot be fighting against them. We need them to build a bigger mass that is going to counteract the force of La République. And that's what we are doing. Once that is done, then we'll move on to the next phase, which is diplomacy. And just to answer your question, diplomacy is going to be a very important part. And let me give you an example. Today, the Beti Bulu, the Northeast, everybody is benefiting from scholarships that go to Commonwealth students. When you look at the number of students who benefit from Commonwealth scholarships, it's this Southern Cameroonians of birth are very, very few. So then you need to start asking yourself, why is the Commonwealth Secretariat and the Commonwealth as a whole giving advantage to the people who should be the least beneficial of something that should be ours? So for us, it's little gains. We want to start confronting those things. But by putting together this team, this group, it also gives us the leverage to start confronting, meeting this international community and say, we are speaking on behalf of our people because we are a representative of the different schools of thought amongst our people. And of course, what is the common good agenda that all three caucuses agree on beside individual priorities? Thank you. Very good question. I think Michael and a whole lot of people, Ferdinand talked about it. What unites us is greater and bigger and stronger than what separates us. But let me just go ahead and say that we must always go back to, and if you go through the MOU that we signed, it talks about the historical injustice that we all suffer. Whether you're federalists, you're independentists, you're autonomists, or whatever, we were all victims of an injustice that we are looking to rectify. As long as we agree to that, now that gives us the possibility to work together and move forward. Now, some people may decide to get to the summit of the Boya Mountain by going from Boya upwards. Others may decide to go to Bakingili and go there. But the bottom line is that we all want to get to the top of the mountain. And as long as the direction is the top of the mountain, then we are in the right direction. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, just 1 second to add to what Mr. Milana said, please. 1 second, if I may, please. Thank you very much. Yeah, what I want to add to what Mr. Milana said is about the federalists who are seen as enemies. Actually, I don't think the vast majority of the Amazonian people see the federalists as enemies. Those who are seen as enemies, the federalists who are considered as enemies, are those who are promoting the activities of La République of Cameroon that is continuously subjugating our people. These are the people that we see them as enemies. It's not like we hate them. They are still our brothers. So we have nothing to do against this. Whether you are federalists or you are confederationists or what, you are still our brother. But if you are promoting the activities of the Republic of Cameroon that continues to subjugate our people, that's where we see you as an enemy. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you, Mr. Milan, for that explicit explanation of the caucuses and a little bit of the reasons why we have to have this MOU. And it's still on the fact that a greater majority of us have one thing or two things that keep us together, bond us with the same bond rather than separating us. From Kimbel, African Hour, and then African Hour. Do they still have a specific question?
Kimbeng, he asked a question, so maybe nothing more.
After Pa from Kimbeng, please.
I have one question. What will it take for us to unite in our house? For a determined army to go and fight and win, it has to start within the house. No matter how divided we are and how on different aisles we are, we have to get out as Southern Cameroonians and face the bullet. That's my question. What will it take for us to recognize that we are all Southern Cameroonians and speak with one voice so that the international community can believe in us? That's all. Thank you.
The essence of the
your question is noted. Your question is noted, sir. There was Pamba. Can he also give his question, and then we'll ask for the response will come for both questions.
Okay, thank you, comrades. War greetings to everybody. I think there's no one that can argue the fact that we are fighting a war of annexation and occupation. Therefore, there is no middle ground. There's nothing like federation. Either you become a slave in La Republique or as a free Ambazonian or Southern Cameroonians. I just want to ask a question to the Federalists. From our forefathers from 1961, La Republique has never ever considered or called the word federation. Where are they asking this question? Because it is that is what caused La Republique to call a war on us. Then, after 8 years today or 9 years counting, somebody still said federation, whereas that is the more reason why war was called upon us. I just want to ask again the second question. Within the framework of internet, when did Southern Cameroon to learn what to give to Southern Cameroons, we give to us autonomy or whatever they call it, or special state. Then the war of a nation that we are fighting, where are federalists taking the federation to? Because for 60-something years.
Can I please call on, we have Mr.
Hello?
Mike in the house. We have
Yes,
Mr. Ferdinand is also there, and Comrade Milan is also there.
Yes, I think I should mention the fact that again, we are here to clarify our memorandum of understanding, and to the best of my knowledge, it would be appropriate for us to answer questions that clarify why civil society, independentists, and federalists think they can work together the freedom that we request. So it's very necessary to understand that we are for the memorandum of understanding. So Pamba's question, I think one thing I want to quote is that regardless of the issues that we find ourselves in, especially that which is, I would say, the I want to say the regime of Obia and the people of former Southern Cameroons, they have used all sort of derogatory language or terms against the people of former Southern Cameroons. They've done everything, but one thing is clear. One thing that is clear is that we can be provoked by their, I would say, inability to understand that we are people. We have our own identity. We came into an agreement as partners. We shouldn't ignore that, or we shouldn't take their bait to think that because of their behavior, we have to react in a certain way that is, contrary to our beliefs. The people of former Southern Cameroons naturally are not violent people. They are reasonable. They are people who are very receptive of every other communities. We are people who have respect for ourselves. That's the first thing that we have, and we expect others to treat us with respect. But if somebody doesn't, you don't go after them. The issues that the war that is in Cameroon today can never be fought or won. The people of former Southern Cameroon cannot fight or win a war against an army, organized army. But on the other hand, federalists believe that through civil disobedience, or I would say through a federalist process where there is no violence, we could have attained or achieved what we stand for without necessarily going into a war. So it is imperative to understand that the federalists, we believe in non-violence, and we believe in I would say constitutional democracy, as it were. To answer questions deeply about federalism and, I would say, the people of Southern Cameroons and federalism, I think this is not the right medium for it. But when it comes to the memorandum of understanding, it was signed or agreed on the fact that we have different ideologies, but we are the same people, and what brought us together is stronger than what divides us. And the divide is only brought in by the very people that we are fighting against. They are on the regime. So that they are the ones who kind of injected this divide into us. From the beginning, in about 2016, we were united towards a cause to fight against them. We're fighting against a system that is being completely destroyed. We're fighting against assimilation. We're fighting against subjugation. And these are all things, or I would say, aspects that we all felt and we still feel today. And we think to fight against all this is not via violence. However, we have our, like Milan explained already, some of our brothers and sisters think differently. But as it stands, the memorandum of understanding should guide us, should be the beginning of a new era. All of us. Even if we have, or we thought, or we think we would never work with federalists, or federalists have something that somebody who is from the independent caucus doesn't have or disagree with. The fundamental pillar is that in the end, we both have a common enemy. And if we focus on that, we would realize that there are a lot of things that we will benefit together as a force than those things that perhaps every person have in their own mind. So I will not dive into personal questions. Thank you.
I kept mentioning it that we have an MOU which we're explaining, and that is the reason why we are here today. And I want to just play to others. If you don't have the opportunity to ask questions today, I'm going to ask my brother from the independentist point of view to make a few comments while we proceed to the resolutions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the essence of this conference has been kind of watered down to the core. My brother from Mike Ataki from the Federalist Caucus made mention about the pro-independent side thinking about violence. Just a comment. This war, the people of Southern Cameroon, in the case of this war between the people of Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia, and La République du Cameroon, our people are not the aggressor. We did not begin with violence. We have never initiated violence in this union, so to speak. But that is just to clear the air that you cannot be beating a child using violence on somebody until the point where the person's back is at the wall and you think that that person will not retaliate. But that is just a point I wanted to make, just to add with respect to that. But with respect to what we are here for this conference, I would say the most important thing is the question that my father, Powerful Kimben, asked: how can we come together as a people such that we can be stronger in order to be able to fight the common enemy that all of us have? My brother from the Federalist Caucus can agree that at the end of the day, what they are fighting for is for our people to have the opportunity to decide their future. We just differ. We just differ on how to go about it. So the question that our father asked in this house is, what is the essence of why this conference is the essence of the conference, so to speak. And I believe it's one of the most important things that each and every one of us here should be thinking before coming into the conference, because I believe we can do that in several ways. Building genuine unity, is the greatest thing we can do. Agree on a common goal, create a unified command structure, avoid public, conflict, infighting, like we almost always do. Leadership, discipline, and accountability. Some level of strategic planning, from reaction to proactive action on our part as a people. I believe carrying out resource mobilization, taking care of our people that are illegally, a lot of them, illegally detained all over the territory of Cameroon and within our own territory, going through hell. Some have died without even a trial. This is the most important question for me. And I believe the essence of this memorandum of understanding is for us to achieve what Pa Frunkimben asked. And I plead with all of us for the people that have died in our land. that continue to suffer. Parents cannot even go to the farm to farm, and most of our people used to, live from the farm. So we need, before we come, this is my cry. We have to understand what is us. Our people are dying on a daily basis. The suffering is getting worse by the day. We have to think on how we can achieve a single goal without being my opinion or your opinion or that person's opinion, but the opinion of the general good of a Southern Cameroonian. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, brother, for that explicit explanation. We've got a few people to speak, and once those few people speak, we shall be moving towards the closing. But please be aware that from today onwards,